Greetings! You are moving right along. Now, I will say, for the next step, your painted cupcake tops must be dry. So if you have just gotten done painting them, you need to go to the hair dryer, which is located underneath my dry erase board, and you need to turn it on and you need to dry these. And this paint needs to be completely dry before you move on to the next step. So if you need to, pause, dry, and then come back and press play. Now, one of the things that you have learned about the art of Wayne Thiebaud, besides that he loves doing cakes and pies and things that you eat, is that he had a tendency to sort of make outlines around things. We've discussed this before, and you've done this already on your cupcake cup. We have not made any outlines yet on our tops, and now that your paint is completely dry, we are going to do that. So, let's take a look and see what you're going to need to get this step done. Over at our supply table, you will find now several boxes of watercolor crayons. You need to take the color of your first cupcake. My first cupcake is pink, so I'm going to choose a pink one and take it back to my seat. Once you've got your crayon back to your seat, the very first step is very simple. You're just going to outline the sections of your frosting. This is a watercolor crayon, which means that it's kind of a dried up paint stick. And so you're going to have to press hard to make the line nice and bold. If you press lightly, it won't show up very well, especially since we are drawing on top of already dry paint. So press firmly and try to stay on your lines. You should still be able to see them, plus the outline. There. Now you probably found that drawing with this type of crayon that feels kind of dry and kind of crusty. It's really important that you do press hard and control the crayon and stay on the line. Now, before we move on to the next step, we need to remember that we are learning about value. Value is the lightness and darkness of a color. It also helps us to create something called shading. And shading is when you use a little bit extra value to create a shadow on an object. The reason we create a shadow on an object is to make it look realistic. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to examine my cupcake cups. When I painted using tints and shades in this order, it creates a cupcake cup that looks like it has shading. The shadow is darker on this side and it's lighter on this side. It kind of reminds me of a couple of pictures that I've seen recently. Take a look. In this painting of this apple, you can definitely see the shadow on the left-hand side. But not only the shadow, on the right-hand side, you can see a bright spot. That bright spot is where the light is hitting the object. That very light spot, that little almost white part, is called a highlight. That shows you the direction from which the light is coming. This is a photograph of a still life with a pear and a pitcher and some grapes. This picture has a lot of shadows. On the left-hand side of the pear, you can see it's very dark, almost black. And on the left-hand side of the pitcher, it's definitely darker. And if you look at each grape, the left-hand side of the grape is also dark. So that tells us that when light is coming into a still life, it is coming from one direction. And all of our shading, the dark places that we paint or draw on our objects, is probably going to be on the same side. In this case, the darkness is always on the left because the light is coming from the right. So when I look at my cupcake cup, and I see that my darkness is on the left and my lightness is on the right, then I know that to show the shading on the frosting, my darkness must also be on the left and the lightness on the right. So let's show you how to do that. You're going to need your crayon again. This is very easy. On the left side, bottom of each one of your sections, you're just going to add a little bit more crayon. For this, it's important to always go horizontal. And I'm just going to add a couple more lines halfway. I stop halfway over. And I just add a little bit of a thicker outline, sort of, on the bottom. I'm going to do the same on the next section. A couple more lines of color from my crayon. Stop in the middle. I go back and forth a couple times so that I get a thickness. And then the same thing on the top. I should say on the bottom of the top. And that is all there is to it. Now you will repeat this whole process for your medium-sized top and your small-sized top. Each time you'll go back and get the proper color of crayon. So I need purple next, and then I will need the light blue or the turquoisey kind of blue for my third. Press pause and go get your next color. I'm back with my purple crayon. Now on this one, I'm having a little bit of a hard time seeing my pencil lines, but I can see, based on the outline of my top here, where that line should probably be. And since I drew it in the first place, I can figure out where it should be, and I will just add it back in. Remember to press firmly and get a nice bold line. And now I'm going to go back to the bottom and add my thickness. Remember, stop halfway. And remember, it's just a little bit of thickness. You should not be coloring. You should not be going over and over and over and over it. It's just a couple of extra lines on the bottom left-hand side, because the bottom left is where our shading needs to be. Change color, one more time. Third color, third time. Now for my shading. Now, I am finished, but that is definitely not all. We are about to take this shading, these shadows that I created with my crayons, and make it look a lot more realistic.